Hi, I'm Trooper Smacka.
Hi, I'm Trooper Wellman,
Please stay tuned for a behind-the-scenes look at being a state trooper.
and together we can make a difference.
Here we are live at the 360 Vegas studios with Trooper Wellman here for another edition of Trooper Talk. It's been very weird over the past, one day it's raining and then it's cloudy and one day it's not, and then it rains in the south and it doesn't rain in the east. And so now I track the radar to see, where I'm at and where it's raining and stuff like this, because what I've noticed is that, it can be raining a lot down here and not a lot over here. Mm-hmm. And so with that, people have to just look on the weather apps or something, to make sure where they're traveling,
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been getting a lot of rain. Summertime is our monsoon season here in Vegas, and we're so grateful for the water. But at the same time, our streets, they do the best they can with the flooding, but when we get hit, I don't know if you saw, like our casinos circa and that, the flooding was insane.
From the ceiling, right?
Yeah. They got hit with it, and so same thing with our roadways. Please don't drive through it. Don't attempt to drive through it because you're going to get stuck, and then it just adds another obstacle of us trying to get you out of there. And, it is a real thing that you can get trapped in these water, and it goes quicker than you think. Like I saw people on the news, they were like playing in the water out on the strip and like boogie boards and stuff, and that, I guess do whatever you want, but that is not safe at all. No. And you could drown. Ultimately, you could drown in this flooding. So just please be careful. Read the signs, listen to the radio, listen or follow our Twitter feed, and just stay updated on what's flooding. And if it's raining really hard, maybe don't drive that day. Maybe just wait it out for a second. Stuff happens. I get it. But just be careful. Drive slower. Your car, if you're not, a lot of us aren't used to driving in the rain because we don't get it very often here. Right. So the traction on your wheels isn't there. All the oil, we always talk about how when our roads get wet, because they've been dry for so long, it brings all the old oil from vehicles up to the surface, making it slippery. So you might just be driving along and everything seems fine, and all of a sudden you just hit that slick patch and then you're going to lose control. So please just be careful. That's why we always say decrease your speed when there's weather, when it's raining, and just be careful.
Yeah, and nobody knows how deep that is.
Exactly.
Right? Not in the very end, but people drive through as fast as they can so they can splash. Yeah. And then all of a sudden in the middle, it's 2, 3, 4 feet deep, and you don't realize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Searched car, firearm, 7 pounds of marijuana.
Yeah, so this was up in our Northern Command. And a trooper just made a traffic stop. Something just didn't seem right. They furthered the investigation, got a search warrant on the vehicle, ended up locating 71 pounds of marijuana, $10,000 in cash. And I don't know the exact total of those firearms, but look how many there are. And this was actually a prohibited person, a prior felon, that can't even be in possession of a firearm. And these firearms, all the serial numbers were filed off, so they're all illegal guns at this point. But because the actions of one trooper, none of this was brought into our cities, right? This stayed off of our streets. And that's the impact you can have when you wear this badge and you get out there and you just, it's crazy. That was a really big deal.
That's a lot of, and let's take into account, marijuana is legal in the state of Nevada. So, you want to drive, you want to smoke, you drive down the road. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's no reason to have all this type of stuff.
Yeah, this was trafficking, right? This was selling, they were using it for no good intentions at all, no personal use here.
And look at all these magazines. This person was ready to rock and roll.
Isn't that crazy? To think the damage they could have done with all of that, or even just the hands, even if just like one person that had no good intentions with a firearm, that's not allowed to have a firearm, that's illegal. That's probably like 50 guns, 30 guns right there. That'd be 30 criminals that could go out there and do nothing good with it, cause harm. So it's just.
And those are like real,
rifles, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are expensive. So
and this isn't like, little dinky 22, that's not going to hurt. This is like real stuff here.
And, and like even like the little handguns and stuff, like, children get, Lieutenant Munoz tells a story about how when he grew up in a neighborhood that they knew where the guns were hidden throughout the neighborhood, like, gang members and stuff. They would stash guns around so that way if they needed to get to one quickly, like if they were running or drive-by, the kids knew where the guns were. And so those are all guns that could have been in hands of children.
Yeah.
I mean, all the marijuana, selling it, everything. Just nothing good comes from any of this. And that's why we were excited to post this, just due to the fact of one less, firearm on the road, like out there in our communities. Yes, marijuana is legal, but this has no good intentions behind
that's
it.
what
Right?
I'm
This is not
saying.
personal
Right,
use,
that's what
right?
I'm saying.
Nothing good is coming from that. And then the amount of the $10,000 in cash, was seized as well, and who knows how they even obtained that cash. And so that'll all come out hopefully throughout the investigation and in court. But this was a good one, and this trooper did a great job and a great service to our community on this.
When you go up and you don't know what you're gonna deal with, when you pull somebody over. I mean, like,
yeah, he has no idea what's in that car, and that's why we always train with the mentality of like, you don't know what's in the vehicle, we don't know what this person's intentions are. The trooper had no idea walking up on the car, and that person that's in the driver's seat, what if he was like, oh my god, they know, and then his intentions are like, I got to get out of here because of what he had in that vehicle.
Right.
Luckily, that was not the case, and everything worked out in the trooper's favor, but you just never know what you're rolling up on.
right. Well, thank goodness for the trooper, and I'm glad that he's safe, because this could have been a catastrophe.
Absolutely. So this is actually Trooper Brems. So she sent this to me. It was a wrong way driver that we got stopped.
This was that night, right?
The Michael May night?
Yeah.
Nope. This was a different night.
There was one of these that you sent me on that night. .224 maybe.
I'll have to look.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this was a different night.
So Trooper Brem, she was on here. She
Yep.
had fun on the Trooper Talk.
Yep.
Yep.
And it was a wrong way driver, and it went for a while before we could get a trooper there. I think it was like 15 miles. And finally, we got up to the car, and we were able to get it safely stopped in the shoulder. And they blew on the PBT of .184. And remember, legal limit is legal limit is .08. So if you're thinking like increments of 8, so 8, 16, so .16 is double the legal limit, and so forth. So they were over more than double legal limit just on this preliminary breath test. And of course, this is non-evidentiary. Like, you can't use this in court, and that's why we post pictures of it, because it doesn't affect like what our judgment call is. We administer field sobriety testing prior to even doing a preliminary breath test. All this is just to tell us if they're positive for alcohol in their system or if we believe it to be drugs. And so ultimately we do evidentiary testing down at the hospital or at the jail that is used as evidence in court. But this just gives you an idea of possibly how much is in their system. It's crazy.
And so we love the tow truck in the back, okay, because that means that Jeep is gone.
Absolutely.
Right? That person is now $10,000 in debt, right? He's now getting a ride to the jail where he has to stay.
Minimum 12 hours.
Minimum of 12 hours with all these people, right? I don't even know. Can you make a phone call there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you probably can't sleep, right? Because it's like a cement floor or something. Like what right? Like, I mean,
it's pretty nasty. Like, you got a wood bench. It's cold.
Okay.
You have a shared toilet with multiple people in these cells. It's not pleasant, and you're not supposed to like jail. That's the whole point, because
Right.
you don't want to go there. If it was nice and cozy, then people would be like, okay, whatever. And unfortunately, people go there multiple times, but it's not supposed to be enjoyable. And like, minimum 12 hours, and
12
then you're
hours.
looking at all those legal fees, your record now. It's going to affect your employment. Usually just to get your car out of the tow yard per day, it's around $200 to $300 a day that it's in there.
A day.
So I mean, you're looking at all those fees, like,
And your hands are behind your back, handcuffed for about how long? From many hours?
Oh, no.
From the time you get picked up to the time you go into jail?
Correct. From the time that you get placed into custody, placed in the vehicle, sometimes you have to just wait for the tow truck. We will never have a suspect in custody over 60 minutes.
60 minutes. But it's still, you're like this.
Oh, absolutely,
like,
yeah.
it's not pleasant.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can't scratch your nose.
Yeah, and we take them down jail. Once you get inside the jail, they will transfer you to a belly chain, where then now you have it's here.
Oh, okay. So you're like this.
Yeah, because
so you have to, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, you're like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to be inhumane, of course, but
Right.
yeah, it's not a pleasant experience.
Not a pleasant experience.
You do not want to be in handcuffs, and all could have been prevented.
All could
by
have been
a single
prevented.
choice. So
It's unbelievable. All right. Total lives lost year to date.
So this is as of July 31st. So, yeah, we'll have our August numbers coming out soon. This is statewide. We're at 211. And granted, we are not up from last year, which is a positive.
Right.
But no matter what, we're still at 211 lives lost. Like, that's 211 people that aren't coming home. 43 are pedestrians. 47 were not wearing a seatbelt. So 47 could have possibly still be here today if they just would have buckled up. And 43 with the pedestrians. We always talk pedestrian safety is a two-way road or two-way responsibility.
Right.
It's not only the people that are driving, the motoring public need to make sure they always are looking for pedestrians, but as a pedestrian, make sure you have your head up and you're looking around as well and make sure it's safe to cross before doing so. Even if you have the right of way, make sure it's safe to cross because people are not paying full attention sometimes. So that could have been 43 lives that were still here just if people would have been a little more responsible. Unfortunately, our top two leading causes are always and continue to be impairment and speeding, and that's just the reality of it. 142 are in our southern agency, and I believe our count is a little over, I think last time I checked, we were at 33 here for Highway Patrol in Las Vegas, but I'd have to double check as of August. So, but if you want to include all our other agencies in all of Clark County, we're at 142 as of July. So we'll have the August numbers come out at the 1st of September.
And those people are not coming home.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Those people are not going to be there. And you know, the other day I was traveling on the roadway, and there was a bicycle that was in the motoring lane, like doing the right thing. Like he was. And so if you weren't paying attention, you would have just run over to the. You know what I mean? And so we need to pay we need to pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to these pedestrians and I always come back to, the unrestrained thing. I never wore a seatbelt. You know what I mean? I never did it. And then, when I got the car, that one time, I hit that on the 95 where the curve is or whatever, and you bounce like this. And I'm telling you, I was out of the car. I don't know what saved me from not bouncing out of the car, but since then, it was like, And so now I wear it, and when you brake and you turn, it's actually really nice to have the seatbelt because you feel like you're
secure.
safe.
Yeah, it's holding you in place.
And so if not, then you're like this, and that's not safe, or you're holding yourself or something. So we have to be responsible for that, and the unrestrained motorist is a big deal.
Yeah, and then when you really think about the impairment and the speeding, that's the Micah Mays right there.
Yeah.
An impaired driver took Micah May. That 211, that's Micah May. That's just when you have a connection to it, it's the reality of it. That's Sergeant Whitmarsh's father that just got taken by an impaired driver. These numbers are people. It's not just a number.
Yeah.
And you start relating these stories to it, and it's just beyond tragic.
And that's why we want to keep talking about these stories so that we can stop putting people into these positions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're gonna drink, just do something else. Call the Uber. Like you said, you're a state trooper.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have shame. You were out with your friends. There's nothing wrong with that. Listen, boop boop boop. Pick me up here, drive me home.
Our plan was not to get impaired that night. We went out to dinner, and then we just started having a good time, and one thing led to another, and we were like, you know what? We're gonna leave the car here. We're gonna use a ride share. And I can't tell you how convenient it was. You can even put options on there where you can have it go to a different destination first, drop your friend off, then it can take you home, and you can split the fare. I mean, it is made for convenience, and it's there, and use it, please.
Please use it. You know what I'm saying? My wife and I went out to dinner. We took the car, not drove for that exact reason. You drink a little bit, and that's the end of it. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense.
Mm-mm. Yes.
Suicide. Okay.
So this is our Northern Command, our Reno one. And Trooper Dosh, he helped a woman on a traffic stop, and she wrote him a letter to thank him. And this isn't the complete letter. There's more to it. But as you can see, on a routine stop, I was detained by you and placed in an illegal medical hold. So she was actually having a moment of trauma, and like we were talking about, suicide, and she needed some help. And at first, he didn't know what was going on. And for his safety and hers, he placed her in, he detained her. and she was getting ready to do something very stupid that would have wound up as a serious fatal injury. She was getting ready to kill herself. And for the reason for the letter and the card is to thank him because he saved her life, because he could tell she was in distress. So he called medical personnel. They put her on a legal hold, which is okay. It's not a bad thing. Just it's 72 hours at a hospital with a doctor that's going to evaluate you, give you resources to help you while you're in your moment of crisis. And I mean,
And you can't leave?
it depends, but usually no. If we put a legal hold on you, or if only certain people have that authority to do that, and law enforcement is one of them. And no, you're not allowed to leave if you made threats to hurt yourself, to harm yourself, harm anyone else. If you're a danger to yourself. Just there's different things that go about the legal 2000. Yeah.
Then you can do that, and then you really have to make sure that they get help.
Absolutely.
Which is great. Does that make sense?
It's called a
Like,
legal hold. Yeah,
legal
a
hold,
legal
okay.
2000. And we place a legal hold on someone if they're having suicidal thoughts, or, again, if they're going to commit harm to themselves or someone else. A lot of times you'll see this when we come into contact with pedestrians on the highway that are suicidal or on the bridge. We'll do a legal hold on suicide is our number one common legal hold reason. And this lady was not. She was in distress and was possibly going to hurt herself. And so Trooper Dosh recognized that and did place her on a legal hold. But he went a little beyond the badge and talked to her, comforted her, took time to find out what's going on, and offered her those resources. And then when medical arrived, they did place her on the legal hold where she got help and ultimately saved her life, to the point where she was so grateful that she wrote him a letter. And like I said, it was a much longer letter, but what we could put on there without, putting too much of her business out there, we just wanted the public to know, like, we're out there, right? That was on July 17th, and that was a life saved by the actions of Trooper Dosh right here. And so,
and that's important,
Yeah.
I mean, like, we obviously we never want to put the trooper into that position, but if something happens, again, it comes down to that badge, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not to be feared. Sometimes people need help,
Yeah.
and so if we need help, there's people out there and there's resources out there to ask. And so don't be afraid.
And it's also the responsibility of us as officers to stay up on our training. And, like, for example, this pin right here, this stands for crisis intervention training, like, team. And what that means is I took extra time in my career to go take a week-long class where I sat down with people with mental disorders such as, bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, all the different disorders that people have, so that way I'm more prepared that when I come in contact with somebody, I recognize those signs and those behaviors, and I realize, oh, maybe they're not listening to me because, they're just not listening to me, and I'm not going to raise my voice. I recognize, oh, they're in distress, or, oh, she's having anxiety right now. Let me talk calmly to her, and I'll say, instead of being like, get out of the car, this, that, and she's having a panic attack, maybe I'll be like, hey, listen, my name's Ashley, like, take a breath with me, breathe with me, like, can you step out? I'm Trooper Wellman with Nevada. I'm going to identify myself. I'm going to talk calmer to them. And those are all things that we have to stay up on our training so that we can recognize when someone's in a moment like this, and we can learn how to deal. Someone with, like, epilepsy, or especially like schizophrenia, and that, if we know what we're rolling up on, we'll actually tell our partners, especially if it's at night, we'll be like, hey, turn your front lights off. The strobe, if somebody's on, like, certain narcotics, things like that, we know to turn our strobes off because it's going to trigger them. And we'll just activate our rear lights, our red and blue strobes in the back to, notify traffic. But there's different things that we do to try not to upset these individuals more, or to make it get worse. And so that's why it's important for us to stay up on our training so that we do recognize this. And, there's officers that don't recognize it right away, and, it happens. But I feel like that is our responsibility. If we're going to wear this, we need to be aware that these are things that we're going to come across often, and we need to be prepared.
It's like the little things, I mean, and again, people might not realize that, but that's the little things that make what you do very special.
Yeah.
And so they might never appreciate it, but, like, that you do that. And so that's what makes it really cool, is like, you're like, okay, I recognize that. And so we recognize him, right?
Yeah. I'll never forget, one time there was a guy who was driving reckless all over the road. It was daytime, in the shoulder, big black pickup truck. like I call it like a Tonka truck because it could have just like ran over cars. It was so big and lifted, and he was just driving in the shoulder. And when I stopped him, at first I get out and I'm like at gunpoint walking up because I don't know what's going on. And as I start talking to him, I can tell he's in distress. And because of my training and the things I've experienced throughout my career, luckily I cued on to it quickly, and I realized that he was suffering from PTSD, and he was in the military, and I had opened his back door because his truck was so lifted prior to going up to his front door, and I had seen some like military like camo stuff in the back. So then I started going, okay, he's military, possibly maybe there's gun in here, maybe this, that, and I'm like trying to process everything. I ended up talking to him calmly, and I put my firearm away because I don't want to trigger him. I had other units coming, of course. I get him out of the truck, and as I'm talking to him, he's totally having an episode. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what's going on. Yeah, he could be impaired, but I'm also thinking opposite. Like, I'm also thinking, okay, possibly impairment, possibly just having an episode. And through what I've learned and talking to my partners and things they've gone through, I knew to ask him, who's your battle buddy? And people that are in the military that suffer from PTSD, just like Sergeant Smack is my battle buddy at Highway Patrol.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like, when you're in distress, you have a battle buddy. And I asked him, who's your battle buddy? And he did. He was like, oh, it's so-and-so. I called his friend. His friend was able to give me the whole backstory on him, tell me what he suffers from, was able to talk to him on speakerphone, talk him down. We calmed him down, got medical there. We ended up, getting him home safely, all kinds of stuff. But those are just things, like that's a call that will always stay with me because it taught me to ask for a battle buddy with military people.
Yeah.
And you just learn every time you deal with individuals, all these new things. But you just never know what someone's going through. And sorry, I don't mean to go on a rant, but just...
No, but it's the truth. You know what I'm saying?
But like PTSD is a real thing, and
Yes.
you don't have to be just military to be dealing with that. Like everybody has trauma and has a story, and so you just got to be able to recognize it.
And that's why, when you go up to someone, when you're pulling them over or whatever, you don't know what you're going to deal with. And so that's what makes, again, what you do very special, because of the fact that, we're looking at what's going on and assessing the situation.
Yeah.
It's not just, everybody's the same and, we're just nasty people. No, it's very important. And so, the PTSD is real. People suffer from it all the time. People hurt themselves with it all the time. People don't know where to talk, all these different types of things. So it's great that you recognize. So it's just one more thing that's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. School bus was, I think I saw this on the news.
Yeah, it was first day of school.
Right.
It was just a mechanical issue. And the bus driver recognized it right away. Something was wrong, pulled over to the right shoulder, but then something sparked in the engine area, which caused it to catch on fire. Luckily, there was no children on the bus, and the driver was able to safely exit the vehicle. But when you see school bus on fire, it's like very...
School bus on fire, right?
First day of school, it was very traumatic. So that's why we wanted to make sure we got out some photos, made sure I told everyone everybody's safe, what happened. It's just a mechanical issue. The only reason we had the highway shut down, which again, the whole highway got shut down, which was super unfortunate, caused a lot of delays. But the reason the highway shut down was because once it caught on fire, the bus started leaking diesel fuel everywhere, and we had to make sure we clean it up.
Yeah.
And we have to clean it up right? Like we have to get companies out there to do it properly. Otherwise, you can't just put kitty litter on it and absorb it. It's too much fuel. And again, when it rains, that fuel is going to come to the surface, cause slippery. People can't drive on it. It's just going to cause a big mess. So we have to make sure we do it right and get it cleaned up properly. So that's why it just takes some time.
Okay. And that's great that you, like you said, you tweeted out, what it is, because, the school bus on fire on the road, you're like,
chaos, right?
Right. You know what I'm saying? And so thank goodness that no one was in there. Thank goodness. And again, we when it comes to the school district police, the school bus drivers, right? We love them. They go out there and put their lives on the line every day, with the kids, and make sure the kids get home safe, and and all this stuff.
They literally have our children's lives in their hands.
Right.
So.
And so it's great that they did the correct thing.
Yeah.
They recognized something was wrong. I'm sure they radioed, or what I mean, like something is wrong. They get exit. They take themselves out of harm's way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. If that bus was occupied with children, that driver, I wouldn't have any doubt that they would have pulled over immediately and had them all exit that vehicle prior to anything or anything happening to them. So appreciate that, and that driver being responsible and recognizing
Yeah.
something's not okay.
100%. And obviously, you can see that there's plenty of room there that they could have walked off to the side or
Yep.
whatever. And, the bus is off to the side of the road. And again, we don't pull to the middle.
Hope he pulled to the right shoulder.
You know what I'm saying?
He did everything right.
It did everything right. So, Trooper Wellman, so thanks again. I just want to end today with the fact that we know what we talked about, which was really important. All these various things, and again, we stressed about the suicide, and we talked about that, and it got brought up. So I'm glad, and for the Trooper Micah May, I think that was great with Joanna. So I'm glad that that happened and stuff. So
I appreciate you highlighting
thanks
it.
again for coming in, and we'll see you next week. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, see you later.